Rose Jenkins stared at the town doctors, retreating back as he departed her small homestead, leaving behind a diagnosis that shattered her heart like glass hitting stone. It was 1876 in the dusty town of Copper Creek, Arizona Territory, and at 23 years old, she had just been told she would never bear children. Female troubles, Dr. Whitman had called it, with clinical detachment that did nothing to soften the blow. The scarring from your fever last winter. I'm afraid motherhood isn't in your future, Miss Jenkins. Rose sank into her mother's old rocking chair, her hands trembling as they rested on her flat stomach. Since she was a little girl playing with corn-husk dolls, she had dreamed of having babies of her own. Now that dream had turned to dust like so much of the Arizona landscape. Her sister Martha's voice broke through her thoughts. What did the doctor say? Rose couldn't meet her eyes. I can't have children. The fever damaged something inside me. Martha's sharp intake of breath was followed by an awkward silence. Oh, Rose, I'm so sorry. But Rose could see the pity in her sister's eyes, the same pity she would soon see in everyone's gaze once word spread through Copper Creek. In a place where a woman's worth was measured by her ability to bear children and tend a home, what future awaited her now? The following Sunday at church, Rose felt the weight of stares and whispers. Her sister had sworn she hadn't told a soul, but somehow the news had traveled like wildfire. Such a shame, Mrs. Peterson murmured to Mrs. Collins as Rose walked past. A barren woman has little prospects out here. The poor dear. What man would want? Mrs. Collins caught herself as Rose looked their way, but the damage was done. Rose held her head high as she took her seat in the pew, even as tears threatened to spill. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. After the service, as folks gathered on the church steps, Beatrice Taylor approached with her 3 young children in tow. Rose, dear, I'm hosting a quilting circle on Tuesday. You should join us. Her voice dripped with saccharine sympathy. Thank you, but I'll be busy with the store, Rose replied stiffly. Of course, though I suppose running your father's store is a blessing now. Gives you something to occupy yourself with, seeing as you'll never have little ones underfoot. Beatrice's eyes widened in mock horror at her own words. Oh my, I didn't mean, excuse me, Rose managed, pushing past her toward the road home. She heard Beatrice's voice fade behind her. Poor thing. What kind of life is that for a woman? The tears came then, hot and angry as she hurried away from the church. She wouldn't let them see her cry, but inside her heart was breaking. Weeks passed and the whispers continued. Rose threw herself into running the general store. Her father had left her when he died 2 years earlier. The work kept her hands busy, even if it couldn't quiet her mind. It was a sweltering June afternoon when Ethan Jameson rode into town. Rose was sweeping the porch of Jenkins' general store when the stranger's horse trotted up to the hitching post. He dismounted with the easy grace of a man who'd spent his life in the saddle. Afternoon, madam, he said, removing his hat to reveal sandy brown hair and eyes the color of a summer sky. Just rode in from Texas. Your establishment looks like it might have what I need. Rose straightened her apron. We carry most necessities, Mr. Jameson, Ethan Jameson. He offered a smile that creased the corners of his eyes. I'm looking to stock up before heading to my uncle's ranch outside of town. Haven't seen the old coot in years, but he's offered me work. Your uncle? Rose asked, curiosity piqued. Samuel Wright. Owns the Double W about 10 miles north. Rose nodded. I know Mr. Wright. Good man. He comes in for supplies once a month. Glad to hear it. Ethan's gaze lingered on her face a moment longer than necessary. Mind if I browse your wares, Miss Jenkins? Rose Jenkins, Miss Jenkins. He nodded respectfully before following her into the store. As Rose helped him gather supplies, she couldn't help noticing his gentle manner, the way he asked thoughtful questions about the items and the town. Most cowboys who passed through were gruff or overly familiar, but Ethan Jameson had a quiet dignity about him. "Been running this place long?" he asked as she tallied his purchases. "2 years. It was my father's before he passed." "You run it alone?" "I do. My sister helps occasionally, but she's married with children of her own." Rose felt the familiar pang as she mentioned children. "Impressive," Ethan said, and there was genuine admiration in his voice. "Most men I know couldn't keep books half as neat as yours." Rose felt her cheeks warm at the unexpected compliment. "Thank you, Mr. Jameson." "Ethan, please." He paid for his goods and loaded them onto his horse. Before mounting up, he turned back to her. "I suspect I'll be making regular trips to town. Hope to see you again, Miss Jenkins." As promised, Ethan returned to the store the following week, and then again the week after. Each visit, he'd find some reason to linger, asking Rose about the town's history or sharing stories of his travels across the Western Territories. She found herself looking forward to his visits, planning what she might tell him about the books she was reading or the new shipment of fabrics that had arrived. On his 4th visit, Ethan invited her to join him for supper at the town's small restaurant. "It's not proper for a single woman to dine alone with a man," she protested weakly, though her heart quickened at the invitation. "We could ask your sister to join us if that would make it proper," he suggested. Rose considered the offer. "I suppose that would be acceptable." That evening, with Martha as chaperone, Rose enjoyed the first truly pleasant social outing she'd had in months. Ethan regaled them with tales of cattle drives and the characters he'd met in his travels. When he spoke directly to Rose, his eyes held a warmth that made her forget, if only for a moment, the pitying glances of the townspeople. As they walked home, Martha whispered, "He can't take his eyes off you, Rose." "Don't be silly," Rose chided, but her heart fluttered at the thought. The following Sunday, Ethan appeared at church, sitting beside his uncle. Rose felt the curious stares of the congregation as Ethan sought her out after the service, inviting her for a walk along the creek. "People are talking," she warned him as they strolled beneath the cottonwoods. "Let them," he replied simply. "I've never much cared what others think." "You might if you knew what they were saying." Ethan stopped walking and turned to face her. "Rose, I've heard the whispers. Small towns aren't good at keeping secrets." She froze, mortification washing over her. "You know that the town gossips say you can't have children." "Yes, I know." His voice was gentle, his eyes kind. "Does that matter to you?" Rose blinked back tears. "Doesn't it matter to you? What man wants a wife who can't give him sons to inherit his name?" "A man who wants a partner, not just a mother for his children." Ethan took her hand carefully. "I've known many families, Rose, some with children, some without. Happiness doesn't depend on having little ones underfoot." "But your legacy, my legacy will be how I lived, how I treated others, the work of my hands." He squeezed her fingers. "Besides, there are many children in this world who need homes. If we wanted a family someday, there are ways." Rose stared at him, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. "Most men wouldn't see it that way." "I'm not most men." The corner of his mouth lifted in a smile. "And you, Rose Jenkins, are not most women. You're strong, clever, and kind. That's why I find myself thinking about you when I should be focused on ranch work." Rose felt a warmth spread through her chest, a feeling she'd nearly forgotten existed. Hope. Over the following months, Ethan courted Rose properly, with flowers and Sunday walks and careful attention to her reputation. The town continued to whisper, but Rose found herself caring less and less what they thought. When Ethan was with her, she felt whole in a way she never had before. It was a crisp October evening when Ethan proposed, down on one knee beside the creek where they'd first spoken honestly. "I know it hasn't been that long," he said, "but I've seen enough of the world to know what's rare and precious. You're both Rose Jenkins. Would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Rose's hand trembled as she touched his cheek. "Are you certain, truly certain, I can never give you children of your own blood?" "I'm certain I love you," he said firmly. "The rest we'll figure out together." They married in November, a small ceremony at the church with Martha and Samuel right as witnesses. Rose wore her mother's dress, and Ethan wore a new suit that made him look like a different man from the dusty cowboy who'd ridden into town. As they exited the church, Rose heard Mrs. Peterson's stage whisper to Beatrice Taylor, "Poor man doesn't know what he's in for. A marriage without children is hardly a marriage at all." Ethan must have heard too, for he stopped, turned, and addressed the two women directly. "Ladies, I consider myself the luckiest man in the Arizona Territory. I'd appreciate it if you'd wish us well, or keep your thoughts to yourselves." He took Rose's arm and led her down the steps, leaving the gossiping women open-mouthed behind them. "You didn't have to do that," Rose whispered. "Yes, I did." His jaw was set. "No one's going to make my wife feel less than the treasure she is, not while I'm breathing." Rose moved to the Double W Ranch, into a small cabin that Ethan and his uncle had prepared for them. She continued to run the store 3 days a week, with Martha's help, while learning the rhythms of ranch life. Ethan taught her to ride properly, and she discovered a freedom in galloping across the open range that she'd never known before. In the evenings, they'd sit on their porch, watching the sunset paint the desert in gold and crimson. Ethan would read aloud from books they'd ordered from back east, or Rose would share stories her grandmother had told her about the early days of the territory. "Are you happy?" Ethan asked one night, 6 months into their marriage. Rose looked at their interlaced fingers, at the simple cabin they'd made into a home, at the man who had chosen her despite everything. "Happier than I ever thought possible. Even without children," he pressed gently. "Even without them," she confirmed, "though sometimes I still feel the absence." Ethan kissed her hand. "I understand. We can still build a family, Rose. It might just look different than we once imagined." The opportunity came sooner than either expected. In July of 1877, tragedy struck a homestead 15 miles from town. The Carson family father, mother, and 3 children had been traveling by wagon when flash floods washed out the trail. Only 2 children survived, 8-year-old Emma and her 4-year-old brother James. "They're being kept at the doctor's for now," Martha told Rose when she brought the news. "But they need somewhere to go. They have no relatives anyone knows of." Rose's heart constricted at the thought of those poor, orphan children. She looked at Ethan, afraid to voice the sudden, desperate hope that had kindled inside her. He read her expression perfectly. "We should visit them," he said simply. "See if there's any way we can help." The next day they rode into town together. At the doctor's house, they found 2 silent, shell-shocked children. Emma, thin and solemn with honey-colored braids, sat protectively beside her little brother who clutched a worn wooden horse. "Hello," Rose said gently, kneeling to their eye level. "My name is Rose and this is my husband Ethan." Emma regarded them warily. "Are you taking us to an orphanage?" "No," Rose assured her. "We just wanted to meet you, maybe be friends if that's all right." James peeked out from behind his sister. "Do you have horses?" Ethan smiled. "We have several. Do you like horses, James?" The boy nodded vigorously. "Perhaps you could visit our ranch sometime," Ethan suggested. "See the horses for yourself." Over the next 2 weeks, Rose and Ethan visited the children daily. They brought small gifts, a doll for Emma, books they could read together, fresh baked cookies. Slowly, the children began to open up, sharing memories of their parents and their life before the accident. "They can't stay with me indefinitely," Dr. Whitman told them after one visit. "The territorial orphanage in Phoenix has agreed to take them, but it will be at least a month before someone can transport them there." Rose and Ethan exchanged a glance. "What if?" Rose began hesitantly. "What if they didn't have to go to the orphanage at all?" Ethan finished. That evening they had the most important conversation of their marriage. "Are we ready for this?" Rose asked, pacing their small cabin. "Two children so suddenly." "I don't know if anyone's ever truly ready to become parents overnight," Ethan admitted. "But those children need a home and we have one to offer." "What if I don't know how to be a mother? What if I fail them?" Fear clutched at Rose's throat. Ethan took her hands in his. "You won't be alone. We'll learn together day by day," he smiled gently. "Besides, I've seen you with them. You already care for them as a mother would." Rose thought of Emma's solemn eyes, of James's cautious smile that appeared more frequently with each visit. "They've lost so much." "We can't replace what they've lost," Ethan agreed, "but we can give them something new, a family." The next day, they approached Dr. Whitman with their proposal. There were papers to sign, questions to answer, and a visit from the territorial judge to approve the arrangement. But by August, Emma and James Carson became Emma and James Jameson. The day they brought the children home to the ranch was both joyous and terrifying. Rose had prepared the small second bedroom with fresh linens and a handmade quilt for each child's bed. Ethan had crafted a bookshelf and filled it with stories. "Is this where we live now?" Emma asked, her small hand clutching her brother's. "If you'd like to," Rose answered carefully. "This can be your home for as long as you want it to be." "Forever?" James asked. Ethan knelt beside him. "Forever," he confirmed. "We'd like to be your family now if that's all right with you both." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "But we already have a mama and papa." "You did," Rose said gently, "and they loved you very much. Nothing will ever change that. We're not trying to replace them. We just want to take care of you and love you too." It wasn't easy at first. The children had nightmares. James would wake screaming for his mother, and Emma would withdraw into silence for hours. Rose learned to be patient, to offer comfort without pressure, to create new routines that gave the children security. Ethan proved to be a natural with them. He taught James to ride a gentle pony and showed Emma how to identify animal tracks. In the evenings, he told stories of his own childhood, making the children laugh with tales of his misadventures. The first time Emma called Rose Mama, 3 months after coming to live with them, Rose had to turn away to hide her tears of joy. That Christmas, the 4 of them traveled to town for the church service. Rose felt the stares as they entered as a family, but this time they were stares of surprise, not pity. After the service, Mrs. Peterson approached, her expression uncertain. "Your children are very well behaved, Mrs. Jameson." "Thank you," Rose replied simply. "We're very proud of them." As they walked to their wagon, Rose overheard Beatrice Taylor whispering to another woman. "She said it would never happen, but look at her now, a mother after all." Rose might have been angry once, but now she felt only a quiet satisfaction. Let them talk. She knew the truth of her family. It wasn't built on blood, but on choice and love. 2 years later, in the spring of 1879, a wagon broke an axle outside their ranch. Inside was a young woman, barely 18, traveling alone and very pregnant. "My husband died in a mining accident," she explained as Rose helped her into the house. "I was trying to reach my cousin in California before the baby comes, but—" She grimaced in pain. "The baby's coming now," Rose realized, recognizing the signs from helping Martha with her deliveries. With Ethan sent to fetch the doctor and the children staying with Uncle Samuel, Rose guided the young woman. Sarah was her name through a difficult labor. Dr. Whitman arrived just as the baby made its appearance, a tiny girl with a shock of dark hair and healthy lungs. "She's beautiful," Rose whispered, placing the swaddled infant in Sarah's arms. Sarah gazed at her daughter with a mixture of love and despair. "How will I care for her? I have nothing, no one." "You have us," Rose said firmly. "You'll stay here until you're strong enough to travel, and we'll help you get to your cousins." Over the next 2 weeks, as Sarah recovered, Rose cared for the baby girl named Clara as if she were her own. She showed Sarah how to nurse, how to bathe the tiny body, how to soothe her cries. One evening she found Sarah sitting on the porch, tears streaming down her face. "What's wrong?" Rose asked, sitting beside her. "Are you in pain?" "I can't do this," Sarah confessed. "I can't give Clara the life she deserves. No money, no home, no prospects. What kind of mother would I be?" Rose took her hand. "Being a mother isn't about what you have, it's about how much you love." "But love isn't enough, is it? Not in this world." Sarah looked at her with desperate eyes. "You and your husband, you have a beautiful home, children who adore you. Clara would have a good life here." Rose's heart stuttered. "What are you saying?" "I want you to take her," Sarah said, the words rushing out. "Adopt her like you did Emma and James. Give her the family I can't." "Sarah, you're her mother, and as her mother I want what's best for her." Sarah clutched Rose's hands. "Please." "I've seen how you look at her, how you care for her. You were meant to be her mother." That night, Rose and Ethan had another life-changing conversation. By morning, they had agreed to adopt Clara, with the provision that Sarah could visit whenever she wished, and that Clara would always know about her birth mother. When Sarah left for California a week later, it was with promises to write and a locket containing a small portrait of herself to give to Clara someday. "Take care of my heart," she told Rose as they embraced goodbye. "With everything I have," Rose promised. In October of 1880, Rose encountered Beatrice Taylor in the general store. Now expanded and thriving under Martha's management, the store served as the heart of Copper Creek's commerce. "Rose Jameson," Beatrice exclaimed, eyeing the baby on Rose's hip and the 2 older children helping to sort penny candy. "3 children now, who would have thought?" Rose smiled serenely. "Life has a way of surprising us, doesn't it?" Beatrice had the grace to look embarrassed. "I suppose we all misjudged what motherhood means. It seems you were meant for it after all." "Every child deserves love," Rose replied, bouncing Clara gently. "And every woman deserves to choose her own path to happiness." That evening, as the family gathered around the dinner table, Emma, now 12 and helping to serve, James, 8, and chattering about his day at school, Clara babbling happily in her high chair, Rose caught Ethan's eye across the table. "Happy?" he mouthed silently. Rose looked at the faces around her table, at the home they had built together, at the man who had seen beyond limitations to the family they could create. "Completely," she answered. Later, after the children were asleep, Rose and Ethan sat on their porch beneath a blanket of stars. "You know," Ethan said thoughtfully, "I heard the Millers talking about those twin boys orphaned in the train accident near Tucson. They are looking for a home for them." Rose laughed, leaning against his shoulder. "Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting, Ethan Jameson?" "I'm suggesting our family might have room to grow." He kissed her temple. "If you're willing." Rose thought about the doctor's pronouncement 5 years earlier, about the whispers and pitying glances, about the path she'd never imagined her life would take. "I'm willing," she said, her heart full to bursting. "After all, they said I'd never be a mother." She smiled up at the stars. "I think we've proven them wrong." By spring of 1881, the Jameson family had indeed welcomed 7-year-old twin boys, Benjamin and Theodore, bringing their brood to 5 children. The small cabin had been expanded into a proper ranch house, filled with laughter, squabbles, stories, and more love than Rose had ever dreamed possible. And if the good people of Copper Creek were surprised by how the barren woman had become mother to 5, Rose didn't mind. She had learned that family wasn't about blood or birth, but about the bonds forged through love, choice, and dedication. Every night, as she tucked her children into bed, Emma, now entering young womanhood, James, growing stronger and more like Ethan each day, the twins with their identical mischievous grins, and little Clara with Rose's own stubborn determination, she said a silent prayer of gratitude for the cowboy who had ridden into town and seen beyond her supposed limitations to the mother she could become. In the end, motherhood hadn't come to Rose in the way she'd expected. It had come better, richer, and more meaningful than any path she could have planned for herself. And that, she knew, was the greatest blessing of all.